There is a moment you have probably imagined, even if you never told anyone. The moment you might see them again. Your dog, running to you the way they used to. Your cat, weaving around your feet. That familiar face, those eyes that knew you so well coming toward you across some bright and golden place, whole and healthy and young again. And you kneeling down and holding them again at last, feeling the warmth of them, the weight of them, and knowing, this time, deep in your bones, that you will never, ever have to say goodbye again. Maybe you've pushed that thought away, afraid to hope for it, afraid it's just a fantasy, a story you tell yourself, a comfort you invented because the loss was simply too much to bear. We're often taught to be suspicious of hopes like that, to assume that anything that comforting must be too good to be true. But today, I want to gently ask a different question. What if that hope is not a fantasy at all? What if the longing you feel to see your pet again is pointing you towards something the Bible actually gives us reason to believe? What if the ache to hold them one more time is not a weakness to be ashamed of, but a signpost, pointing towards something real? Today we're going to look honestly and carefully at what Scripture actually says about reunion, about the world to come, and about whether the creatures we loved so much might be part of it. And I'll tell you now, honestly, some of this may bring tears. If it does, let them come. I hope they'll be the kind of tears that heal, the kind that come not from despair, but from hope finally being given permission to breathe. Stay with me all the way to the end, because the last part is the part that speaks right to the reunion you've been aching for. Let me tell you about a woman named Eleanor, because she's the reason I made this video. Eleanor lost a dog named Gracie, a gentle collie who had been her shadow for 16 years. Gracie had been there through the death of Eleanor's husband, through the moving out of her children, through the long quiet of growing old. 16 years of a gentle collie following her from room to room, sleeping at the foot of her bed, waiting by the door. And Eleanor was in her 80s when Gracie died, which meant something particular, something she was brave enough to say plainly. She wrote to me and said, "I'm near the end of my own life now, and more than anything, I find myself longing to see Gracie again. Not in some vague way, I mean really see her, hold her, feel her again. Is that foolish? Is that just an old woman's wishful thinking? Or is there any real reason to believe I might?" And when I read Eleanor's letter, I understood that her question is the deepest question of all, the one underneath all our grief. Will I see them again? It's the question a child asks, and the question an old woman asks, and it never really goes away. Let's build this honestly, the way Scripture builds it, piece by piece, because the hope of reunion rests not on one verse, but on the whole shape of what God has promised. Here is the first piece, the foundation of it all. The world to come is a place of reunion, not endings. The whole promise of the Christian hope is that death is not the final word, that what was lost is restored, that goodbye is not forever. In the first letter to the Thessalonians, chapter 4, Paul comforts grieving people with the promise that they will be reunited with those they've lost, and he says these words, "Encourage one another with these words." He does not say, "Get over it," or "move on," or accept that they're gone forever. He says, comfort each other with the promise that you will be together again. The very heart of the Christian hope, the thing Paul reaches for to comfort the grieving, is reunion, being together again, in the presence of God, where parting is no more, where no one ever has to be left behind. That is the world God has promised. Not a lonely eternity, not an empty and solitary forever, but a great gathering, a homecoming, a reunion of everything and everyone that love thought it had lost. The whole direction of the Christian story is toward togetherness restored, toward the ones we said goodbye to, met again, toward parting itself being swallowed up and undone. This is not a small theme in Scripture. It is the very heartbeat of the hope. Here is the second piece, and it's the one that speaks to whether animals are part of that reunion. When God shows us the world to come, it is full of living creatures. In Isaiah chapter 11, the restored world overflows with animals at peace. The wolf and the lamb, the lion and the calf, a little child leading them. The world to come, in the Bible's own vision, is not empty of animals, it teems with them. So a reunion with a beloved creature is not out of place in that world at all. It is exactly the kind of world Scripture describes, a world full of living, breathing animals at peace, no longer suffering, no longer dying, no longer lost. When you picture your pet in the world to come, running through green fields in the light, you are not picturing something foreign to the Bible's vision, something you've smuggled in from a sentimental daydream. You are picturing something that fits perfectly inside what Scripture actually shows us. The world God is making has animals in it. Isaiah saw them there, at peace, in a healed and glorious creation. Your imagination of your pet in that world is not a betrayal of Scripture. It is in harmony with it. Here is the third piece, and this is the one that brings the tears. In the book of Revelation, chapter 21, God makes His great promise about the world to come. He will wipe every tear from their eyes. There will be no more death or mourning or crying or pain, for the old order of things has passed away. Now think about this carefully. What are the tears God promises to wipe away? They are the tears of loss, the tears you cried when they died. And here is the tender logic of it. You cannot wipe away the tears of a loss while the loss itself remains. To truly wipe away the tears you cried over your pet, the loss that caused them would have to be undone. The comfort God promises is not that He'll help you forget, it's that He'll make the sorrow itself pass away. And for the grief of a lost companion, what would that look like, if not reunion? What would it mean for God to wipe away the tears you cried over your dog or your cat, truly and completely, unless the loss that caused those tears were somehow made right? You cannot dry the tears of a permanent goodbye while the goodbye remains permanent. The promise to wipe away every tear is, hidden inside it, a promise to undo the losses that caused them. And that is a staggering thing to realize. When Eleanor read these passages together, she wrote back to me, and I could feel the change in her. She said she had always been told not to hope too much, that it was probably just wishful thinking. But now she saw that the whole shape of Scripture, the promise of reunion, a world full of animals, every tear wiped away, leaned toward exactly the thing her heart was longing for. She said, maybe my longing to see Gracie again isn't foolishness after all. Maybe it's the very thing God put in me, pointing me toward what He's promised. She told me she had wept reading those verses, but that for the first time the weeping had felt less like grief and more like hope breaking through. As if a door she'd assumed was closed had turned out to be open all along. I want to pause here because I suspect this is reaching someone whose heart aches with that exact longing, the longing to see a beloved animal again, and who has been afraid to hope for it. If you've been holding that longing quietly, half ashamed of how much you want it, I want you to know it is not foolish, and you are not alone in it. There's a whole community of us here who share that same longing and have found real, biblical reason to hope. Thousands of people who love God and love the animals He made. If your heart has needed this, subscribe and walk with us. You don't have to carry that longing alone anymore. And very quickly, for those who want to go deeper than a single video can reach, everything we explore here, all these verses, and this hope I've gathered into a complete book of comfort called Eden's Promise. It's linked right below this video if you'd ever like it. That's all. Now let's go to the deepest part of this, because it's the part that matters most. Now let me be honest with you, the way I always am here, because honesty is everything on this channel, and this promise is too precious to overstate. There is no single verse that says, in plain words, you will see your pet again in heaven. I won't pretend there is. Anyone who tells you the Bible flatly guarantees it is going further than the text. There is real mystery here, and an honest faith rests in that mystery without fear. But here is what we can say, and it is so much more than nothing. The entire shape of the Christian hope is reunion, the undoing of goodbye. The world God has promised is full of living animals at peace, and God promises to wipe away the very tears you cried over what you lost, to make the old order of loss pass away, to make everything new. When you hold all of that together, the hope that you will see your beloved companion again is not wishful thinking. It is woven right through the fabric of what God has promised. It is a reasonable, honest, biblical hope. And many believers holding these scriptures together exactly as we just have found real and lasting peace in the hope of that reunion. Not a naive peace that pretends to know everything, but a grounded, honest peace that rests on the whole weight of what God has promised and trusts Him with the rest. Because think about what "make everything new" and "no more death" actually mean, followed to their end. They mean that whatever love lost, love may yet find again. They mean a world where the goodbyes are unmade, where the empty spaces are filled, where the ones we grieved are no longer beyond our reach. No more death is not a small phrase. It means the very thing that took your companion from you will itself be taken away, abolished, gone. And in a world with no more death, what happens to the losses that death caused? And if the God who is making all things new knows how much you loved that creature and knows the tears you cried, is it really such a stretch to believe that the making new of all things might include the one you're longing to hold again? I don't think it's a stretch at all. I think it may be the most natural hope in the world. When Eleanor understood all of this, she wrote to me one final time. And what she said, I will never forget. She said she was no longer afraid of the end of her own life because she had stopped seeing it as only an ending. She had started to picture what might be waiting, a bright and golden place, and somewhere in it, a gentle collie lifting her head and knowing her and running to her across the grass, the way she used to. 16 years of love, not lost but restored. And Eleanor said, "I don't know exactly how it will be, but I've stopped believing that holding Gracie again is foolishness. I think it might be the first thing that happens when I get home." That, she said, was the first time in her long life she had looked toward the end without fear, and instead with something that felt, to her own surprise, like hope and even joy. She said she still missed Gracie every single day, but the missing had changed. It was no longer a closed door. It was a waiting. "So let me bring it home for you. Will you see your pet again?" Here is what the Bible gives us, honestly. Not a single proof text, but something greater, a whole promise woven from beginning to end. The Christian hope is reunion, the undoing of every goodbye. The world to come is full of living animals at peace, and God promises to wipe away the very tears you cried over your loss and to make everything new. Put it together, and the hope of seeing your beloved companion again is not a fantasy. It is the natural shape of the hope God has given us. So the next time you imagine that moment, and I know you do imagine it, your pet running to you across some bright and golden place, whole and young and healthy again, their eyes lighting up the instant they see you, don't let anyone tell you it's foolish. And don't tell yourself it's foolish either. The whole weight of Scripture leans toward a world made new, where death is undone, where every tear is wiped away, and where nothing that was truly loved is finally lost. You loved them with everything you had, and that love was never wasted and never foolish. And there is every honest biblical reason to hope that the goodbye you said was not the last word after all, and that one day, in the world God is making new in a place with no more death and no more tears, you will hold them again warm and whole and overjoyed to see you, and this time you will never, ever have to let go. If this brought peace to your heart today, and if it brought tears, I hope they were the kind that heal. I'm so grateful you stayed with me all the way to the end. This is what we do here at Eden's Promise. We hold the Scriptures together, honestly, and we find the hope they offer those of us who love the animals God gave us. And thank you to Eleanor and to everyone who writes to me and shares their story. Her longing to see Gracie again is the reason this video exists. If there's something you'd like me to explore next, a verse, a question, an animal you loved, leave it in the comments below. I read every single one, and if you've found a home here in this gentle community, stay with us, subscribe, and walk with us in faith, in hope, and in love for the animals God gave us. Until next time, may you find peace, and may the promise of Eden be a comfort to your heart.